Hello and welcome to MyNewtNews. I am not a newt. My name is not Newt, but you can call me Newt. So today we've got an article in Vice News, and it is called "Drug Users Are Losing Their Fingers and Toes After Shooting Tranq Dope." You know, that might be a clue. In Philadelphia, the animal tranquilizer xylazine has infiltrated the opioid supply, and it's been linked to horrific wounds and amputations. Warning: this story contains graphic content about injection drug use that might disturb some readers. Well, you know, just the flippin' subheadline pretty much covers a lot of it. Philadelphia. Bill's hands are so disfigured that he can no longer fit gloves over them. About 2 months ago, his right ring finger was amputated. In a matter of weeks, he could lose the middle finger on his left hand, which was swollen with a large maroon-colored sore covering the knuckle when Vice News met with him on a recent morning in Philadelphia's Kensington neighborhood. The lesions are markers of a drug Bill said he never intended to consume. Xylazine, an animal tranquilizer known on the street as Tranq or Tranq Dope, has infiltrated Philly's illicit opioid supply. The 59-year-old, who did not share his last name with Vice News, shivered as he hunted for mittens at an outreach event for drug users in Kensington. "Boy, this is angry," said a nurse who volunteers with the harm reduction group Savage Sisters. Savage Sisters? That's interesting. While examining a wound on one of Bill's fingers at a pop-up wound care clinic at Kensington's McPherson Park, known locally as Needle Park because of its open-air drug use. And you know what? I'm sorry, but about the time you got a finger cut off, you might think, rehab's not sounding so bad to me now. Bill said he hates the sedative effect of xylazine, which is most commonly mixed with fentanyl, because it knocks him out for hours at a time. He also believes it's causing sores to break out all over his body. "I never shoot up in my hands, but I get abscesses in my knuckles and the tops of my fingers," Bill said, "caused by whatever they're putting in the drugs." Well, again, clue, maybe you should stop taking the drugs. And I know that's easier said than done. Vice News spent a week in Philadelphia where the drug was detected in less than 2% of fatal opioid overdoses between 2010 and 2015, but jumped up to 31% in 2019. Repeated Tranq use is believed to be causing wounds on users' bodies, and like Bill's, they're not limited to injection sites, but are showing up on people's hands and legs, in some cases resulting in amputations. The problem is so bad that Philadelphia, ground zero for Tranq in the U.S., is looking to hire a wound care specialist and a field nurse to deal specifically with Tranq-related lesions. Drug users and harm reduction advocates said Tranq is also creating a whole new kind of physical dependence, with people passing out for hours at a time and waking up craving more. Philly's going under from Tranq. While there are some strides being made to help people within the city, the issue has largely flown under the radar, even as Tranq spreads to other parts of the U.S., including Maryland, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and North Carolina. "It's killing us," says Sam Brennan, 28, a Tranq user who is living in the shelter in Kensington. She said conditions in the neighborhood, where residents contend with extreme poverty and drugs are sold openly, samples are sometimes given out for free, have deteriorated with the proliferation of Tranq. "It's something I've never seen before anywhere else. People all over the place, sticking needles anywhere they possibly can, passed out." Philly's going under from Tranq. Tranq first showed up in medical examiners' reports in Philadelphia in 2006, according to Jen Scheinfeld, a field epidemiologist with the city who focuses on substance use. But in the past 2 years, its reach has exploded. Of the 200 samples of dope, primarily fentanyl, the city has tested since September 2020, all of them have come back with Tranq in them, Scheinfeld says. A study published recently in Drug and Alcohol Dependence found that in 10 jurisdictions, xylazine's prevalence skyrocketed from 0.36% of overdose deaths in 2015 to 6.7% in 2020. And there is a short video from Vice, and they got little packages: meth, heroin, cocaine. Let's take a quick look.
These packages contain heroin, cocaine, and crystal meth that's being handed out on the streets of Vancouver for free.
Okay, well, you're not exactly going to do anything to stop drug use by giving people free drugs. And unless you've got a really big supply that you can do it every day, that's just pausing the problem. It's not stopping it. And I understand doing harm reduction, because how much are these drug fatalities costing, in this case, Vancouver? You've got to do autopsies, drug screenings, the police overtime, just the number of police, you have to have more because they're doing this instead of doing something else. And I'm all for harm reduction, but if you allow people free drugs, they don't have any incentive whatsoever to stop doing drugs. If you can do them recreationally and you can be a functional member of society and not screw up your life, live how you want to live. But is it really helping people to facilitate their potentially fatal drug use? Because if you have a problem, if you have a blip in giving out the free drugs, or you don't have enough free drugs to give to everybody, then there are still going to be people taking the street drugs, buying the street drugs, stealing to pay for the street drugs, hooking, pimping, whatever. And I hate to say it, but if you're going to do it, I have read that in the past, in the deep, dark, distant past, that in Britain, that they help people with heroin addiction by basically, you went to the doctor every day and got your shot of heroin and went about your life. Is that the best way to do it? I don't know, probably not, but it seems better to have somebody working at a job and living in a house or an apartment and being a heroin addict than living in a tent on a street corner in Seattle, taking a dump on the sidewalk 4 squares away and buying heroin that may or may not be heroin. It may be fentanyl. It may be a little bit of fentanyl and a whole bunch of who knows what, plus some Tranq mixed in, or it might be heroin, fentanyl, ground up catalytic converter material that you're shooting up. I mean, literally, when you buy drugs on the street, you have no idea what it is. It could be rat poison and heroin or fentanyl, or it may just be baking soda. You don't know. Personal opinion here, but I don't know that you're helping people by letting them spiral down. You know, you want to help them to lift themselves up. From what I understand, that most people say, you don't decide to fix it until you hit rock bottom. You know, we don't want people to die. But if you don't let them discover on their own that being a street drug addict is not a good idea, they're never going to stop. Do I have a perfect answer to it? No, I don't. Do I wish I did? Yes, I wish I did. Even if I did, though, would anybody listen? That's right,
Probably.
free drugs, step right up.
Since then, more than 7,000 people have died of drug overdoses.
Okay, so apparently they didn't do much to fix it if 7,000 people have died in the last 5 years. Because that's, what, well over 1,000 a year. That's, what, 1,800 or so, give or take. That's a lot.
With the majority of deaths involving fentanyl, a synthetic opioid that's up to 100 times more potent than morphine.
And it kind of sounds like that their whole point is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, that, hey, if you give them clean stuff, they won't die. But is it helping them? You know, if there are no strings attached, they have no incentive. They're getting clean, strong stuff, and they don't have any incentive to go on the wagon, to go into rehab, to straighten their lives out. And yes, I know there have been a lot of people who have been functional heroin addicts, and you could make the argument that they did okay. And I think one of the people that they say that about is William S. Burroughs, the author. You could make that argument, but I also know that in a bar in Mexico, he shot his wife in the forehead. That doesn't sound like that's so functional to me. Maybe I'm wrong.
She's ordered about $2,000 worth of drugs from the dark web that she's planning to give away after it's been tested for purity.
And so here's a question, where are they getting the $2,000? I would be surprised if this individual has worked and earned that money working at Starbucks or wherever, and then turns around and drops $2,000 on dark web pharmaceuticals to give away.
These drugs will be broken up into like quarter grams and then given away for free to people. And I'm like, a quarter of a gram of drugs is zilch. That's like one hit for some people, you know. But at least I know with that one hit, they're not going to die of a fentanyl overdose. And they're going to know what they're getting. They're going to know how they're dosing themselves with the drugs, which is totally different than street drugs.
Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that's up to 100 times more powerful than morphine. Used medically as a painkiller, counterfeit versions of fentanyl began causing dramatic spikes in overdose deaths in the US and Canada around 2015, and it's gotten increasingly worse since then.
Yeah, because they were complaining that fentanyl, because it's so much more powerful than heroin, as one person I heard say, that they don't mix it up good. The drug dealers, when they're mixing it up, they don't mix it up good. So you get a spoonful of this powder, and one spoonful of it has got X amount. 3 spoonfuls later, that same spoonful has 8X amount. And of course, if you're used to shooting the 1X amount and you get 8X, it's going to kill you. Because I know this is going to come as a shock. Not all street drug dealers or those above them distributors, they don't have real great quality control. They don't have to worry about getting sued. They don't have to list the ingredients on the package.
In British Columbia, overdose deaths jumped by 74% in 2020, the worst year ever.
Okay, here we go. Overdose deaths in the U.S. hit a record 93,000. And the last I heard for firearms-related deaths, murder, suicides, I think it was just murders, was like 13,000. 13 to 15,000. And of course then, if you include suicides, then it's going to be way higher. It's going to be like triple that or more. But even so, overdoses are killing at least twice as many as guns. So how come no outrage, and how come, nobody's lighting fires to get this problem fixed? Because I know, the people that overdose on these drugs, I hate to say it, there are a few of them that society won't miss, but the thing is, like if you watch a guy called Nerdrotic, is Gary Beekler. He was a heroin, meth, crack addict living under a bush in front of a fast food restaurant at one point in the 90s, and then he turned himself around, and now he's a YouTuber. He's making a good living. He's, him and his wife are running the business. They're taking care of their son. They're paying taxes. They just bought a new house. So these are people that are doing it the right way. Now, is there a way that we can help these people? I don't know. But I really think that we need to work harder on figuring out a way to do it. A lot of people think that, well, helping them is giving them their drugs and giving them what they want. Well, no, that doesn't always work. And the fact that in 2020, British Columbia drug overdose deaths hit a peak 5 years after they declared a health emergency, clearly what they're doing is not working. So maybe we need to look at another answer. Street dealers have very little control over what's in the drugs they sell. But while Tranq started out being laced into heroin and fentanyl, it now has a market of its own in Philadelphia where many users are dependent on it. Detox programs in the city are equipped to help people withdraw from Tranq, which can put them at risk of seizures. And see, that's the thing, we've been dealing with heroin addicts since 1900. We've been dealing with fentanyl overdoses since at least 2000. So those are kind of a known quantity. So when something new comes along, that if this, Narcan doesn't work on this, then they have to do research to try and find out what does work, what does help, if anything. Until that time, we're going to be dropping out. They're going to be dying. Where people can use methadone or other medications to deal with withdrawal from opioids, medications that ease Tranq withdrawal haven't been explored. You're not being properly cared for in your detox, you're not going to stay. And, there's more to this, but basically the gist of it, it kind of smells like gasoline. That's what I'm putting into my body. Insane. But yet, she says it's insane, but she keeps doing it. Again, I'm hoping that they can figure something out. And if you're doing drugs, do what you can to stop. Sooner the better, because it ages you, it hurts your organs, and I know that's easier said than done. But free advice is worth what you pay for it. And I'm going to wrap it up there. If you want to watch the rest of the video embedded in this, or if you want to read the rest of this yourself, kind of look at the numbers, and or forward it to someone that you may know who it may help, it's right there in the article. Another video or two of mine that you might be interested in. If you can throw me a like and subscribe, I'd appreciate it. If you see something in my other videos you like, feel free to watch it. And if you want to comment on this, please feel free to do so. Thanks. Bye.